A little more about the farm and the people that lived there. Of course, there was Grandma and Grandpa, and they had 4 children. The oldest was Walter. My mother was next. And my dad joined the farm as a member of a harvesting crew. He'd been raised in Minnesota. And he joined this harvesting crew. They went across part of Minnesota, all the way across Wisconsin, and across Lake Michigan into the state of Michigan. And the Dietz farm was about 20 miles away from Lake Michigan. And it was during the harvest season at the Dietz farm that he fell in love with the farmer's daughter and wooed her and married her. And he left the harvesting crew and joined the farm. And 2 of us children were born there. My older sister, Barron, born 2 years and 4 months or so before I was. And then I was born in March 1912. Well, when Uncle Walter was drafted, no, before he was drafted, my dad had moved us away from the farm into this little town of Fountain, and he opened a shop. He had been educated in repair of watches and clocks, engraving of jewelry, things like that. And somehow or other, stresses of some kind had gotten to him, and he developed a bleeding ulcer in his stomach. In those days, they couldn't treat it. The doctor told him he would probably have at the most a year to live. But Dad decided, he loved homemade ice cream. If he was only going to live that long, he was going to please himself along the way. He closed up all his other type of business and opened an ice cream store. And he made his own homemade ice cream. And lo and behold, it cured his ulcer. He lived to a ripe old age, in spite of the doctor's estimate otherwise. And then, of course, he went back to the farm when Walter was drafted and went overseas. One thing I feel I must say about the time and various circumstances that I spent on the farm, I'm so glad that I had that experience. It was a healthy experience to have, not only physically, but mentally, attitude. A boy was made to feel that he was meant to grow up and take his place as a young man. And you looked forward to being able to do that. And I'll never forget how proud I was when they were loading wheat on a wagon. It was in shocks, and they weren't big and heavy. But one man was riding the wagon, and 2 men on each side were heaving shocks of wheat up there, and he had to arrange them and engineer the loading of the wagon for maximum capacity. And somebody handed me a fork and said, "Here, you can help." You know, it made me feel so proud. And that's the kind of feeling I'd like to see more young men grow up with. The feeling of growing up proud and being able to be recognized as someone that was growing up and capable of doing things as a young man. That was important to me. Well, in due course, my dad moved back to Fountain, and this time he participated in the building of a cement block building in which there was a store, a bigger store than any shop he'd been in before, and living quarters overhead. We lived in those living quarters. At the street level, facing the front of the building, to the right of Dad's store, were stairs that went up to an overhead over the drugstore, parallel to our living quarters over the big store, and stretching out even further, a hall where various organizations could meet. The Rebeccas, the Oddfellows, different fraternities like that. And I can remember when my dad, when we had more children, he needed more room. So he built onto the back. He was a pretty good carpenter. He built a 2-story addition in the back of his part of the cement block building. And us kids, there was a washroom back there, and Spence and I, my younger brother and I, had a bedroom back there. Marion had another bedroom up over the store, the original part of the building. And I remember what used to be outdoor windows of the Oddfellow and Rebecca Hall and everything, now became windows that adjoined Spence's and my bedroom. And the people attending a dance or something in there wouldn't know it, but we could watch them through the blinds and hear the music. And we'd hear Al Beebe or somebody say, "Okay, choose your partners and fill up the floor," and he'd start playing his fiddle. And we used to love to watch that, being very careful that we weren't observed. My brother and I had a rope ladder that we made ourselves, kept it under the mattress in our bed. And in the wintertime, we would slip out of the back window, climb down that rope ladder, and go sledding or skiing in the nearby hills, not very far from our home. I didn't know until many years later, my mother told me, "We knew you had that rope ladder." We always thought it was a big secret.